Okay. All right. There's Don Quixote. But not the Don Quixote where they sing. It's just Don Quixote where they're reading Don Quixote in like a church. And it's amazing for a little bit, but I don't understand Spanish, so that's about where I stop. These are the Schiit Lyr. Lyr 3. Lyr, right? Not liar. It's L-Y-R. It's 3 letters. You can't get this wrong. I'm sure I got it wrong. And I have 2 of them here because of a miscommunication. One person bought one brand new and had it sent to me, but it was like super delayed and I forgot about it. And then someone else was like, Supreme sticker, I'll send you mine. So now I have both. And I'm glad because Supreme here sent it with different tubes. Actually, there should be a solid state one around here. I literally can't find it. I may have to buy a replacement. And I took the tube out of my Dark Voice, the preamp tube out of my Dark Voice. And these are the stock tubes that comes with the tongue soles made in Russia. So I spent a good deal of time listening to it on the tongue sole. And then I swapped it and I had the stock tube and this RCA tube, which I'm sure is from the year of the flood. Yeah, when they were making these things in Harrison, New Jersey. Yeah, that's a while ago. So we got a vintage RCA, and I will find out the name of this tube because I fucking love this tube. It was recommended by me on the Patreon chat by Joe. Joe or Nathan, one of those 2 tube freaks, was like, you gotta get this tube, bro! And that's why my Dark Voice sounds the way my Dark Voice sounds. And so now I've got neither one of the stock tubes in. And the reason this is great, the reason I'm glad I got 2 is because because these both have the DAC modules. We'll talk about the DACs and the options. But I can now run both of them at the same time. Identical tube amps. One with a stock tube, one with a change tube. And one with a change tube, one with another change tube. And I can go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And usually you can't do that. If I swap my Dark Voice out, it's turn my Dark Voice on, wait 30 minutes for it to warm up, plug in a headphone, listen for 45 minutes, then shut it off, then wait for it to cool down 10 minutes, then swap the tube out, then plug it in, then wait for it to warm up, and then fucking done it. And how does it sound different? And sometimes you can tell, and sometimes you're just like, gotta remember to put that on. Jesus. By the way, with this new camera, you can actually see the VUs in case you've never been able to see those actually move before. See them? Look at them. They move. They're usually just blown out because the Hero 4 sensor is not as good as the 8s. So I've been able to sit here and actually go back and forth. And here's another thing. These are old and new. And you could tell because of the finish. Is there feet on this one? There's feet on both of them. Yet the old one sits taller, slightly taller. The finish is different. It sits taller. The boxes were different. The way they packed the tube was different. So, I mean, they're the same amp, and with the same tubes, they sound pretty much the same. But I'm just pointing out little differences that, I don't, look, shiny volume knob, matte volume knob. I actually like the matte volume knob better than the shiny volume knob, because this one seems more consistent on the finish than this one. Tour of the Lyr. So, as always, the front contains no, Jesus, this is heavy, by the way. I want to point out these are heavy. No power switch, which why would you want on the front? Not like you're going to turn this off ever. I mean, it's just a hot fucking... It is a hybrid, by the way, in case you're wondering. We're going to talk power numbers, and you're going to understand. So I have this on high gain. There's, volume knob, DUR. Power light, which is a white LED, DUR. High and low gain. Then you have RC input or USB. And you have the option to get this amp with no DAC, pure amp, which I'd probably recommend because it uses the same DAC board as like the Jotunheim, the little skinny one here. And the, I think it's AKM DAC board is $100. And it's just a DAC. Here's a DAC. Now it's a DAC amp combo. Or you spend $200 and get the multi-bit one. But the problem is the multi-bit stick is not the greatest example of multi-bit. If you're going to spend $100 just to have a DAC inside of it, that's fine. If you're going to spend $200 on it to have a multi-bit DAC in it, I've done testing on Schiit's cheaper multi-bit DAC, and it's kind of like, it sounds barely different, but it isn't like that high-end DAC that they did. Like, I forget what it was. Which one was it? Go to the page. I'll tell you exactly what it is, because I have the internet. Let's see. Products. Here it comes. Wow, look at that giant list. DACs. The Gungnir. The Gungnir multibit was a legit multibit DAC, and you could tell because it sounded amazing. And this, I fear, is just going to be a DAC that's a slightly better DAC, but it's slightly better doesn't get it in the world of DACs. I don't want to tell everyone, oh, every DAC sounds the same. There are variations, but they're usually slight variations. And if you really want to have a difference, you got to throw a paycheck at it. And then you got to hope that the rest of your equipment, the headphones you're using, the amps you're using, the music you're listening to, can all bring out the actual worth of that DAC. Not that I've been shown the light of expensive DACs, but like FPGA DACs and things like that, and you know, balance. So there's something to it. And I don't know if spending $200, if you're going to blow $200 on, like, first of all, having a balanced DAC internal is sort of weird because it's not a balanced headphone, but I mean, I guess it could work and just get the cheap DAC if you want it with a DAC. If you just want this to be your only thing on your desk, because you could run your computer into it, USB, you could run your headphones off of it. It's got a pre-out for powered monitors, and you're done. $100 extra, fine. $200 extra, you might want to consider getting something more robust or unique, or something that you could change out in the future. I have this Topping D50S right now, hooked up to that linear power supply that I got. And this DAC is split out and feeding both of these so that we can do this at the same time. I have used, these both have the DAC modules in them, and I've used it, and it's like, all right, it makes sound. I don't know if it elevates it higher than normal. And so it's just, if you want a DAC, you get it. It's $100. You want to spend more on a DAC, spend more on an external DAC. Here's your pre-out, here's your input, here's your power switch, there's your actual power plug. This is not, shit stuff is almost very rarely complicated. Here's your tube, which is a 6SN7, which is the same as the preamp tube, I think, on the Dark Voice. If it isn't, I jammed that one in there and it still works. So, I mean, we're going to go with it. That's it. It's heavy and it's expensive. I didn't talk about the price. Go away, products page. So on Schiit.com, just the amp is $500. And you're going, Zeos, that's awfully fucking pricey for a hybrid, isn't it? Yes, but we got to talk numbers. Because this amplifier is more powerful than this amplifier. Now, that's a pure tube amp, so getting 8 watts of channel out of it is like, fuck. I mean, I literally can power those speakers. In fact, it's wired up to power those. In case you don't know, if I pull this out, those giant Studio 590s, Zeos, see if you can link the Studio 590s. I know it's going to be hard, but try it. Will play loudly out of this. So the fact that this is pushing 9 watts per channel out of 16 ohms means legitimately you could probably build an adapter and hook it up to speakers. Like unpowered passive speakers could probably be powered by this. So that just sort of like my head. I gotta have 2 of them here, so I was wondering if I should build adapters and wire up. I could wire the by wire, break apart the tweeter and the thing, and then have different control. No. All right, forget about Mad Science Hour, although that was a thing and still can be a thing. Shh. 9 watts a channel, 16 ohms. 6 watts a channel, 32 ohms. 7.5 watts a channel at less than 1% total harmonic distortion, which we're talking tubes and tube pre's. 1% distortion is fine. It's fine. I'm not. That has to have multiple zeros after the decimal place. This, who gives a shit? You're trying to tube it. You're trying to make it sound different. Distortion is fun. Distortion can be fun. You don't use this to analyze. Use this for fun. Then you got 4 watts at 50, which is why I pulled out the T20 RPs. My T50s are in a box behind me. 900 milliwatts at 300 ohm, which is a watt at 300 ohm, which means these are getting a watt. And then 450 milliwatts at 600 ohm. I don't actually own any 600 ohm headphones. But, yeah. And there's a high-low gain switch, which is a 17.5 and a 3.5 dB full discrete current mode, non-inverting 6 and 7 bipolar, blah, 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 blah. You read all the shit you want to read. This is the link to this page in the description. We need that in our lives. So, once you know what this is capable of, and what it is capable of is insanely high amounts of power, then you could start actually focusing on, okay, now how does it sound? Because it's going to power everything. Low gain, I can... The thing is, on low gain, super efficient headphones, well, here. These are not the hardest headphones to drive. I've got them on low gain. They're at like here. Like 10 o'clock on low gain. Now, I'm using a non-stock tube, and I'll briefly touch on that right now. I think they sound... Let me lower that. I think they sound absolutely fucking fine on the stock tubes. The stock tubes are great. These tongue soles from Russia are accurate, but a little bit tubey, and it gets mixed in there beautifully. But then you put something like this vintage RCA in, and immediately no detail. The detail's gone. But maybe that's what you want. Again, remember, this is for fun. No one goes to an amusement park and starts going, well, this train is doing this. Why wouldn't it just be a perfectly straight train? No, that's the whole point. The track looks like that, so it's fun. So this particular tube, dulls the highs, but adds this crazy wide resonance. So let me put the one that I'm actually talking about on. That would make more sense, I think, in the long scheme of thing. So we got Jimi Hendrix, Wild Thing. And this is not the best example, although you know what? I have Jimi Hendrix experience, and it's a little bit shrill. When I listen to Jimi Hendrix, this copy of it is like, oh, God. So this tube is coloring it smoother, Wild Thing, and it doesn't hurt to listen to. And now we got Rob Zombie, Return of the Phantom Stranger, so let's skip ahead a little bit. I gotta put it back on high gain. I'm very proud of this Lyr because it can play T20s, T50s to their potential. This Emotiva Bass X, which if it's available, I'll link in the description. When you page 11 it and you put the jumper in place, or was it take a jumper out? I forget which one. I think put the jumper in place, and you run full amperage out the front or full wattage out the front. 50 ohms produces 8 watts a channel. So it's double what these can do. That's double. But you're talking about 4 watts still. And maybe 8 watts is a little bit too much, but I mean, I'm going to have to recommend anyone who has T50s, T20s, and wants to tube them, this is it now. This is the answer. Because real tubes, the Roger, I don't want to start linking everything, because every time I say it, I've watched it in the future, and then so you said the Roger, better type that in. But real tube amps like the Dark Voice and the Roger, and this is an exception because that's 8 watts a channel. But those type of amps really are not great for planar because they're so low impedance that it doesn't draw out the tubiness. So having a solid state hybrid with the tube pre that's fucking with it, and this is doing I will say, of all the hybrid tube amps that I've used, this one feels like the tube is making the most difference. Like that's a compliment like you can't imagine. Like the X Duo TA10, I will link that because that thing is my baby when I'm using my TH909s. And I had it and it was all right. And then I swapped the tube and it was wow. This is like that, but 3 times the power and a more accessible tube size. This tube is like the most common tube. So you can probably go out and buy a lot. And I'm not saying a lot, like, hey, you could buy a lot. You could buy a lot, like a fucking box of 20 of these types of tubes for like maybe $100 and $150, all tested, and then just sit here and do this. Oh, cool it down, change it out, mark it. Well, this one adds sibilance, so this one's on balance to the left a little bit. This one adds so much bass. And then you could have all the fun in the world playing with an unstoppable power. It's stupid. It's unstoppable power. This at noon on high gain, 9-inch nail eraser is just, that's it. This is what these headphones are capable of. Now, Unplug that, put that up. All right, so now tube differences from what I've heard. And I'm going to try to link to that one specifically, and I don't know if I could link to this one. It's a Radiotron. What does it say? Triode is 85, high balance noise microphone. I don't know. I don't understand tubes. It's one of those hobbies that I sort of need to understand it from a job, but I just fucking don't want to. I don't want to be the guy that's got the wall of tubes. Like, you know what this needs? Stroking my extremely long audiophile beard. I'll do pad swapping. I've already gotten into that. But having like a wall of tubes is not my thing. Usually I will just go stock tube, but since I was provided with these tubes and that tube works from this, I was just like, let me change up songs. That's the best sounding tube, which is why it's in my dark voice. And it takes what's good about this, the stock tube, where it's got great detail and it adds that little bit of width and warmth that makes it say, hey, this is a tube. This makes it sound like an old vintage tube amp where it kills the highs, it rounds it out, but it sounds like warm. Like, this is the most warm sounding thing ever. And if I put this back in here, and you told me this was a 1970s tube amp, I'd fucking believe you. Now, whether you want a 1970s tube amp or not, well, that's up to the tube. So I'm going to concentrate on this one. I'm going to take those off for a bit. I'm going to put this back to low gain because I'm going to plug in. Yeah, put you back on. We'll leave the 600s be. I've used everything. I've used a lot. But I want to just focus for a bit. And these are, of course, ZMF Auteurs. And they look like an old church. Like that's brass and that's wood. Like someone went into a church and said, all this shit, cut it all out and let's make headphones out of it. And so they did. And I guess there'd be leather, but that would be like in the back where the priests sleep. There'd be some leather, if you know what I mean. Oh! Here, unplug this, volume down. Oh, the width on White Stripes. Hold on. Oh, lower that. Come on. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. You know what? Shutting that one off for a second. Going back to this one. I like that tube the most. But this one's, look. I try to explain this every time I do a tube amp. And for real tube amps, it matters, but in hybrids, it's sort of a little more complicated. You buy or build or design a tube amp to play the tubes. This is what makes this sound like this. This is what makes this sound like this. These are what make this sound like this. So what you got to do is you got to build a good platform for testing. I assume if you're really into tubes, every tube amp is just there in your mind to be a test bed for tube testing. Test the tube test bed testing. 1, 2, 3 test. So this is one of the best platforms that keeps you out of the realistic, like the full on tube. You don't need a power tube and then a preamp. You don't like that. It's just one tube. You are backed by an insanely high and clean amount of actual solid state power. And you still get all the flavor a tube can offer. So this is really the best of like all worlds. And I imagine they're going to sell if they haven't sold a shit ton of these, get it? Shit ton? If they haven't sold a shit ton of these already, they're going to sell a shit ton. Because these amps do exactly what they say they should do. They power anything from very light, because it's such a big multiplier from low gain to high gain. And then the volume control, I should talk about that. I've never felt a more linear volume control, where it goes from like 1% to 2% to 3% to 5%. It goes all the way to 50, 51, 50, 75, and 100. There's no ramp. There's nowhere it goes like, oh, it's louder now. It's just a smooth, linear progression of volume all the way through the range. So once you have control like that, The high and low gains are extreme. And the low gain still powers most headphones when you get to like that o'clock. You put it to high and then you need that o'clock. So you got all this range. You go, oh, it's going too high. Better switch to high gain. And then you go all the way back. This is a hell of a thing to have on your desk. Now, preamping out to a set of speakers, you're going to get that tube flavor. And you're going to get the cleanliness. Like when I use the Rebel amp to preamp out. It adds that little bit that's like, oh, you know what? Now, I don't think a lot of speakers need that. You'd have to have speakers established that you know how it is, or an amp that is established that you know how it is. Although this is more powerful than the 789, and the 789 is 6 watts a channel, and I'm still getting my head around it. This is like when Cadillac comes out with a car that's 700 horsepower, and you're like, why? Wasn't 400 enough? Why is 7? And then everyone's like, oh, at least it has 7. And I'm like, eventually that becomes the norm. And then in 3 years, you know, this is going to be a 12 watt per channel Lyr 4. So I'm just going to roll with it for now because it's not a dirty amount of power. If it was dirty power, I'd complain. But clean enough power, and you could do things with tubes with it that makes lots of headphones that I would normally not want to put on tubes on it. So, bravo, Schiit. You're between the Heresy, the Magni 3 Plus, and this, I see bright things for the future of Schiit. Schiit, when I first started doing audiophile stuff, was shit. It's like, don't buy shit, it's shit. Then all of a sudden, they had the Magni Modi combo, and it was okay. And everyone was like, well, that's the obvious choice. And that was the only choice. And then it was the JDS Labs Atom. Actually, it was the O2 ODAC sort of came in and ruined that party. And then it just... So now Schiit's actually getting back into... Like, this is a competent fucking amplifier. Competent in, like, many levels of power and cleanliness. And, I mean, design, that's the newer one. You could definitely tell this is nicer. The actual case is nicer. I guess I have to be okay with the volume not being the way it is. But, actually, since I've turned this one off, let's back it up. Oh, it's so heavy, by the way. This is all transformer in here. Can't even see through it. I can't complain. There's my tube, by the way. It says CV181-Z. That's me. I'm Z. So obviously this tube was made for me. And also has 3 upside down A's, and then that symbol, which I don't know what that means. So it's just... Where this one took away the highs... I didn't mention what that tube did I? This one took away the highs and sort of like give you a nice width. This one enhanced... all the detail, like enhanced beyond stock, and did wonky things. Wonky, crazy things. My only problem with this tube in this unit is you see where it's sitting? Like, I know they went with like a recessed port. Can I touch this yet? I can't touch it. But having it exist, and by the way, when you pull it out like this, make sure you wipe it off. I recommend rubbing alcohol. Yeah, oh, that's still warm. So it goes all the way to there to get into that port down there. Oh, so much stuff. Yeah, this is a brick. It's a fucking brick. I like this amp. I really do. I like it as a hybrid. We have to talk for a split second about the TA30 because everyone's going to ask. Because the X-Duo TA30 is also a hybrid. I think I like this one more. Simply for the fact that it has a high-low gain and I control the volume. This has more power than that. That only had 3 watts per channel. This has 9. But since this has a high-low gain and a very, very linear volume control, this is more easily adjustable. And since it's a hybrid with only 1 tube versus the 3 in the TA30, if you wanted to play around, it's a hell of a lot cheaper. So you're looking at $500 for just the amp if you don't get it with the DAC. I have no problem getting it with the DAC. I would say avoid the multi-bit DAC and get something else. It doesn't have to be multi-bit. It could be the FGPA Magic DAC, FPGA Magic DAC. This topping D50 is excellent. There's an infinite amount of, you can get a Schiit Labs Enog, and this way you can run different input voltages if you feel like it. There's an infinite ways that you could use this. This is a wonderful moddable chunk of audiophilia right here. So, thank you, Schiit. Thank you for putting this out. Thank you for the 2 owners who sent this. The Space Sloth is back there, by the way, behind Anime. Behind Marie. Hi, Space Sloth. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to move on now. I love my TA30, but it keeps blowing fuses, by the way, also. So at least these haven't blown a fuse yet. Wallpaper in the description. See these reviews early on Patreon and Subscribestar. Ask any question you like on those platforms. I'll get back to you within a week. A couple days usually, but it can be up to a week depending on how busy I am. And enter in the yard sales. Now, if I would have bought one of these and I was done with it, I didn't want to keep it, which if I did buy one of these, I'm not sure I would get rid of it. Although the warmth is very nice for the hands, but not in the summer. It would be in the yard sale from the 1st to the 10th of every month. Things that I have purchased, things that companies have sent, things that users have donated, go in the yard sale to help support the channel. From the 1st to the 10th, you can bid on them, change your bid, up your bid, cancel. And then when it's over, if you're in the continental United States, I ship to you for free. If you're outside the United States, it's half shipping. And then the $10 tier on the Telegram or the Patreon of Subscribestar is the Telegram tier, puts you in the fully behind the scenes. I'm on there all the time. If you ask me a question 3 times a day, you get 3 answers within probably an hour. Because, I mean, I could be on there talking and then you ask me a question and it's fine. But I check that constantly. So if you want to be in the constantly talking to Zeos and all of Zeos's minions, because those people actually know more. Those people have more equipment than I do, which makes sense because there's 200 of them. But I feel kind of like I should have more than everybody. So I'm just going to start hoarding it like toilet paper, just toilet paper up there, and instead of audio equipment. Above that are tiers that are not yet used properly. Those tiers are going to be for a hardware swap. I was just talking about how these are my T20s and my T50s are in a box behind me. What if that box was, shipped to a higher tier member for a week for them to play with T50s and Aeolus and other things? What if that was a thing? Well, that might be a thing in the future because I've got equipment just sitting around, all these portable players, IEMs, and it's like either I sell it or spread viruses from one home to the other. We spray this shit with alcohol, but things like that are coming in the future. And don't forget to check out Hi-Fi Guides, which here is hifiguides.com. We have just added, as of yesterday, a headphone sources list. So if you want a desktop amp anywhere from $470 to $2,000 in a hybrid, well, oh look, it's the Schiit Lyr 3. Boom. And then the Schiit Lyr is $850, and then the Liquid Platinum is $680. So we're going to keep doing this with all the categories. So you can do this with headphones, in-ear speakers, subwoofers, and headphone sources right now. Players, Bluetooth things, everything will be added to this site. So you can just either scroll the entire unfiltered list or filter down to actually do correct. I wanted this site to be so easy that your mother can do it. Or my mother. Like, Ma, go in here and pick some headphones, and you'll drag the slider. And when you get under like $150, it gets real hard to read, but you'll be fine. So you got no money and you don't have an amp. These are the 7 headphones that you could afford. And you don't care if they're open or closed, but you need closed back. So then you have these 3 headphones, and those are out of your price range. But you really want mid-forward. You have no results. There's nothing. You can't buy anything. How about Bright? All right, you can buy the PCX 550. I didn't review that Sennheiser. Oh, it's out of your price range. It's $230. And also, Hi-Fi Guides, the forum. Spaceballs, the forum. Hi-Fi Guides, the forum is busy. Like, busy. Like, if I keep scrolling, it'll just keep scrolling. There's just so many posts about Gold Note PH10 phono stage preamp. What the fuck is that? No one's talked to this guy. I feel bad for him. We should go in there and say hi and just scream bump. If it exists, AKM only DAC, R2R digital analog converters. We're trying to make a community that's actually not shit. And it's good because we're starting from the ground up. And we hired a couple mods that know what they're talking about and don't believe in bullshit. So it's good to have people on your side that, understand your core values of don't let anyone start bullshitting anybody else. And keep it light and fun. This is all about music. It really is all about the music section is one of the biggest. But that wallpaper available in the description. Crop it out, put it on your phone, show it to your mom. They love that sort of thing. Oh, she's so cute. And links to these in the description and links to that in the description. And if I can find a link to this tube, which is like my favorite tube. Link to that and the headphones, the 4 headphones, even though you can't buy those. So I'll link to the 600s, the Auteurs, And the T20s, because they don't get enough love. 1840 pads, by the way. Shure 1840 pads. And I forget where I got this from, but this is definitely a comfort strap from somewhere. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you, Schiit, for not being shit anymore, or not being... They're trying to come above the curve, and it's doing well. Well? Well. It's doing well. Well? Well.